Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. So, I know I have a section of my audience who don't read comic books, or certainly people who used to read comic books but no longer do. And I get a lot of questions from those sorts of people asking me, why do you focus on comic books? You could be focusing on things much larger. Why do you focus on this medium? And I focus on this medium because it is presenting to the world an idea of hero. And that idea of a hero is extremely important, especially since these companies have been pushing again and again, time after time, that these comics are for children. Even though the majority of comic readers are no longer children, that's who they focus on intensely. And I have covered that in a number of videos. And so this idea that they are presenting is for children, and it is to show these children what they think a hero should be. And I just want to go over a recent book called Marauders number 10 and show everyone, whether you read comics or you don't, exactly why covering comic books is important. And I'll show you the type of quote-unquote hero that they are presenting. Now, first off, there are a couple of things that you should keep in mind. This book, Marauders number 10, is part of the X-Men line. And the X-Men line is one of Marvel's big money makers. And not only that, but it was revamped a little less than a year ago in order to make it one of the bigger flagship comic sections of their entire comic company. So first you have that. Secondly, you have what I have been discussing over the last couple of weeks, that the people who produce these books no longer pay any heed to the art of storytelling as it has come down over the decades for comics. And that points to a very significant thing. It points to the fact that they don't care about this medium as an art. Why? Because they're not using it to express things in an artistic way. They are using it to convey a message. And that can be seen by their disregard for the art itself. So I want to start there just briefly and talk about this book. Because really, what is a comic book? A comic book is a bunch of sequential art, and the sequential art is there to show movement and action. But how does this book, which is supposed to show sequential art, movement and action, how does it begin? It begins with 5 pages of banter to introduce a problem. During the rest of the book, you have 7 full pages of block text on a white background. And of those 7 full pages, 2 of them are full-page letters that are at the beginning and the end from 2 characters who are not even in this book. They're in other issues of this book, but not in this book itself. So all of that would say to me, this is a complete disregard for the art of storytelling as it is within a comic book, and therefore it is not actually storytelling, and it is not actually art. It is a way to convey a message. Now, what is that message, and how do the so-called heroes present that message in this story? Well, let's start with the least egregious thing within this message. It is one of the characters called the White Queen. She starts to strip in front of a bunch of soldiers in order to show that the male gaze is for the feeble-minded. But, as I said, that's something small. But let's move on to something a little larger. You have in this storyline a few countries who are opposed to this new mutant nation that has been set up. And these countries who seek to protect their own borders against what is seemingly a global consensus, but it is a global consensus extracted through threats by this mutant nation. So these countries that oppose this global consensus, they are branded as enemies. And these countries would include the fictitious nation of Madripoor and the countries of Russia and Brazil. And I don't think Russia and Brazil were chosen just at random. They were chosen because these are 2 countries who are now fighting against globalism, who are protecting their own borders, and who are trying to build their own countries according to as they see fit, not as the global community sees fit. But, again, that's just something that's even medium towards this message. This is not the bigger message within this book. But as I said, these countries, they are declared the enemy, and so the mutant nation declares war upon them. Now here we get to the larger part of the message. When the mutants, who are supposed to be the heroes in this book, board a ship where these countries are working together to make weapons that will protect themselves, they board this ship, and then these heroes very easily take the entire ship and its entire crew. And what do they do to the crew itself? Well, they reprogram their minds. And I just want to read to you a couple of lines of text from this actual scene. This is what the leader of the group of mutants, Emma Frost, the White Queen, this is what she says to the people on board the ship. "You and your men are going to fall into a deep sleep, and when you wake up, you will have no memory of the last month. When you do awake, you will have nothing but warm thoughts for mutants and any humans that dare to exist as an oppressed minority. Gay, disabled, trans, it doesn't matter. The thought of cruelty to those different than you will make you physically ill." And she continues by saying, "It's more than you deserve, you small-minded man." Now, I'm not here to promote the idea that you should be cruel to anyone. I don't think you should be cruel either to your friends or your enemies. I believe that people have the right to defend themselves. Certainly, if it calls for you to defend your own life, you have the right to do so, but you should not be cruel to anyone. But at the same time, no one has the right to alter your thoughts, not only to erase your memories, but also to subject you to a way of thinking that will make you physically ill should you think the way that you wish to think. But here's the thing, again, the people imposing this, they are the heroes in this book. They are the ones who are looked at as the good guys. And we should all realize that the quote-unquote progressive people out there, this is exactly what they wish to do to you and to me and to any free thinker, or certainly any free speaker in the entire world. If you do not live according to the global consensus, you are the enemy. And if they had the power and the ability to do so, they would not allow you even to think what you wish to think. Literally, they're talking about thought crimes here. It's not only that you're not allowed to speak these things, no, you're not even allowed to think these things. And if they had the ability to do so in the real world, this is what they would be doing. They would be altering your mind and your memories so that you would not even be allowed to think what you wish to think. And once again, their crime is that they're serving their own countries as opposed to the global consensus because they wish to defend their own countries against this global aggressor that is coming for everyone. And even if someone might make the argument that, well, look, perhaps they're right. If these people actually were cruel, then maybe their mind should be altered. Maybe their thoughts should be altered. Isn't that something akin to what happens to prisoners? Isn't that what we as a society try to do towards people who wish to inflict some kind of cruelty upon others? Well, even if you go that far, you have to still look at the end of this book, because something else happens at the end of this book. Because there is another fellow in this book, another character, and he is on the side of the mutants. He is trying to help them. He was working for their enemies under duress because they literally kidnapped him and were going to kill him unless he helped them. So he was working under duress. They saved him, and he is speaking to the mutants and saying, "Look, I left you a message. I was trying to warn you." All of these things. He, as a person himself, is no threat to them whatsoever. He is a friend. And yet, what happens to this man at the end of the book? Well, he's considered, because of what he knows, to be too dangerous to allow to be free again. So, not only do these mutants alter the minds of their enemies, they also erase the entire life and all of the memories of this man who is on their side, because he may, in the future, be used by someone else to hurt them. So, This is the nail in the coffin here. It's not just because people are cruel. It's not just because people are enemies. It's not just because people are opposed to them. It doesn't matter. Friend or foe, your thoughts are not your own. They don't belong to you according to these people, these progressive people who write these stories. No, your thoughts belong to those who are in control. And if you do not think, again, it's not even speech, it's if you do not think in the correct fashion, or you pose any kind of threat, large or small, now or in the future, if you pose any kind of threat to their order, your thoughts must be taken from you. Your free will must be stripped from you completely. And once again, I have to emphasize the fact that the people imposing this upon the characters in this book are presented as the heroes. This is why I talk about comics. This is why I talk about these books. These are in no way heroes, and yet they are being presented to the world, and especially to the young, as if they were the ones in the right, as if they were the ones doing what is just. And if these people who run these companies, who write these stories, if they manage to insert into the minds of the young that this, what they are presenting, is what an actual hero is, God help us all. Anyway, if I've given you anything new to think about, hit like, hit the shield in the lower right-hand corner of your screen to subscribe, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about all this. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.